folks, Professor K here, and I'm here to put my money where my mouth is and fail at photo manipulation. This is the stuff that's really hard to get right in Photoshop. And I'm going to give you the techniques, I'm going to show you what to look for, and then I'm going to tell you honestly that it's just really hard to do, and you're going to have a really tough time with this. I will give you some tips on how to find photos that go together well in photo manipulations, and how to start getting things to look right together. But for the scope of this video, I'm not going to be able to do that. I just don't have time to record a actual photo manipulation video at this point, which is really sad because it's a really cool skill, but it's really time consuming. So with that out of the way, we're going to learn some techniques on how you can start this if you want to take on this challenge. Let's get started. All right, so here we have our bunny on the bed, and where we left off last time was this beautiful artistic kind of layering and effect with layer masks. So we're going from this to this. And one of the techniques that we learned in the past couple of videos, we started with this and I said, I'm going to get back and show you how to select this rabbit in a little bit better manner. This is where we're going to try and do that. So my goal is to get this looking as natural as possible. Here are some of the things that are going to help with this, and here are some of the things that are going to be tough. Let's take a look at the original bed image here for one. So let's just take that and hide that layer. We have a really nice clean photo here. Well taken, good focus, good exposure. The light is coming in from the top right. Here's our bunny. Let's deselect this. Pluses on our side. The bunny is shot at relatively the same level eye-wise to the camera as the bed is. That's going to be a plus in our favor. You need in photo manipulation, when you're trying to put two photos together, 90% of it is good photo selection. You need roughly the same focus, depth of field. That's going to be a minus in our case, because I believe more of the bed is in focus here than the rabbit. The rabbit's a little fuzzy in the background, so that's going to make it harder for us. Things that will make it easier for us. Notice the rabbit's shadow. This is coming from the top right as well, so we've got that on our side, but the light is further back. If you think X, Y, and Z axis, over here on our bed, the light is probably a little bit further away from the camera. You can see that because it's pretty harsh coming down over here. Whereas with the rabbit, you can see that the shadows are landing behind the rabbit, so the light is a little bit further back, closer to the camera. And that's going to be a challenge for us here because that means to the eye, which is very sensitive to these sorts of differences, these are not going to naturally fit together very easily. Another challenge that we have here is that there are very different tones in each photo. This one has a lower contrast and it has lower saturation. You can see that because everything looks like a little dimmer, a little grayer, whereas the tones in this photo are much brighter. So that's something that we're going to be up against as well. Notice too that if you look at the overall tone of the photos, take a look at this one versus this one. We can describe photos in warm and cool tones. That's a big difference here. This photo is much cooler in tone than this one. There's a lot of blues in here, but it's actually a little bit warmer. You can tell because the light here is a little bit yellower. So we've got a lot of work to do. Even though we picked good photos at roughly the same camera angle here, roughly the same lighting, it's going to be tough to get these to work together. If you do go into photo manipulation, you got to remember 90% of this is about photo selection. I'm going to go though and give this a try best as I can with these two photos and see if I can get them to work together. Let's start by trying to get this rabbit just off that background. Let's start there. I'm going to delete this layer mask, and instead I'm going to go and double click into the smart object and edit all of that layer masking stuff here. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because the rabbit's a bit smaller in the other photo. It's going to mess us up if we try and do the layer masking in there. It just won't work quite as well. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to use that same technique with masking around hair because we're dealing with fur in here. We're going to use that same channels technique. So adding a layer mask, going to channels. Let's switch from RGB. Let's turn this just to one of these. Sometimes it's challenging to get it to let you switch between these. Okay, here's red, here's green, here's blue. Which has the clearest contrast between the foreground and the background, or subject and the background? I'm gonna say, let's bump up the levels here so I can see better. That one's not bad. How about this? You can do the levels part here. Isn't that neat? It's gonna really mess with the photo, so don't do this. But I'm just doing this to help me understand how this is gonna go. All right, I don't think red's my pick. Green looks pretty promising. I think blue is gonna work best. All right. So just so that you can see how that affected everything, this is what the rabbit looks like now. So we're going to back up in our history, go back to open just so that we don't have that problem anymore. Go back to blue, select all, copy, back to our RGB channel. And then now over in our background, layer mask, alt click, Command A, V, paste. And again, we covered that in our last video, so I'm not going to give you the details on that. We are just going to work on getting this. You know what? Let's use curves this time. Let's use curves to edit this. So let's go to Image, Adjustments, and Curves. That's Command M for your keyboard shortcuts. And the reason why I'm going to use curves today is because we've been doing our adjustments like this, but curves allows you to adjust the midtones as well, and that might actually get us to where we want faster. And you know, I'm all about the speed. So again, we're going for a really clearly defined outline of the rabbit and the fur. This is going to be a tough one, but we're going to do our best here. Let's hit OK. This looks pretty good. Let's clean this up using our brush tool and going to white. We're just going to do nice big, really big brush. Get this out of here. And I want to just really clean up this mucky stuff. So I'm going to spend a few minutes on this and clean up this white background. And a lot of this is just going to be me zooming in. So I'll do that and come back in just a moment. And we'll get back to the rabbit. All right, and we're back. I've masked out pretty much all of the background here. Let's head back over to our bunny, and we can see that we have opposite day going on here. Most of the rabbit is masked out, and most of the background is showing. So let's head back over to our layer mask. Option click to get in there, and again, Command I to invert it. Now let's check. All right, that's looking a bit better. We've got more of the bunny showing through. Let's, just to make this easier, go through and put in a red layer underneath. And now our goal is going to be to get this rabbit. Let's do a contrasting layer. Let's use blue here. Oh, much easier to see. You want something that'll let you see like what's showing through here. Yellow would probably work fine too. Let's hop back onto this layer, and this time I'm actually going to do it off the layer mask. I'm just going to do it outside of layer mask editing mode, but I'm going to keep this selected. And I want to use this to just quickly fill in these areas which are incorrectly being masked out here. And I want to do it in this mode because I want to see more closely what I'm doing, and I don't want to accidentally see how that was a little too close. I don't want to make this detail that doesn't look good. So I'm just going to follow the edge of this. Not going all the way exactly to the edge, but pretty close. And you can see here that I'm going to have some trouble where it comes to the feet because it's not clearly defined where they start and end. So I might even not be able to use this trick that I've been using with the fur to get it to look good here. I might just have to rely on my own understanding of where things end. So I might have to over mask a little bit, see where everything ends. And then, oh yeah, you can see that this has gone too far. So I've gone in the opposite direction. So I'm gonna just Command Z. And I think what I'm gonna do is neaten this up by hitting X, zooming in, and just manually getting this edge cleaned up. And this is, like I said, this is tough work. It's not simple. It's not something you're going to be able to do close to the deadline. You're going to have to really get in here if you want to do this type of work, and probably spend like a good hour or so getting it right, if not more, just because it's very difficult to get the selection right. And then, as you'll see, it's really challenging to get the colors right as well. And then see how this fur is really challenging. The reason why we couldn't get it with the mask is because it's so blurry that it's just not showing through. So I'll show you some techniques to try and get past that. We're not going to worry about the whiskers for now. You may want to mask those back in, but like I said, I'm not really able to show you, aside from telling you that layer masking would be the right way to do that, kind of the best way to do that. All right, we're getting closer. That's a pretty good looking bunny. Let's watch the ears here. Get some of that detail back in. There we go. Watch for areas that might be showing through like this. Yeah, that's properly masked out, so we won't go along edges of the butt too much there. That's what we want. And ideally, when we go through and edit this, the colors should be close enough in tone that you won't see these hard edges anymore. That's what we should be able to do. All right. Now remember, we're in a smart object. Once we save this, it's going to save off to the side, and then it should update in our photo. So let's do Command Save. Ugh, that didn't work. All right. Well, let's go through, and instead of that, let's just drag and drop our bunny friend here back into the picture, and we will remove this. There we go. That's a little bit better. So here's the thing. We did all that work with masking, and it still looks funny. For one thing, we've accidentally removed a paw. There should be another paw here, and it's just, we need to put it back in. So that's where the layer mask is really beneficial. Let's go ahead and put that paw back in using our brush tool, and then let's double check what's our size here. There's the missing paw. It's over here. All right, so let's put that back here and go quick in here. And oh my gosh, now I am seeing where this is going to be a really tough challenge, because just because like the positioning of this paw, I can see that this photo was actually shot at a higher angle than I thought it originally was. So that's why the rabbit looks like it's floating right now or not sitting correctly, is because the rabbit is actually tilted more in relation to the bed. It's on a different plane. So this is going to be tough. But that's okay. At this point, once you notice that kind of camera difference, I would actually say you would be better off choosing another photo. But let's see if we get, I mean, if we place the rabbit there, that's a little more natural looking. We can maybe, you know, that's pretty big for a rabbit. Maybe that. Pay attention to scale when you're working with photo manipulations too. Now, as we take a look at this whole photo, one of the things I'm noticing is that the tone of the rabbit is way different than the tone of the broom. So let's figure out how to color correct this. We're going to use our adjustment masks and clipping masks in order to color correct just the rabbit. We're not going to try and correct the rest of the photo to the rabbit. We're going to try and correct the rabbit to the photo. We could do it the other way around, but I want the tone of the main photo in here, not the rabbit's photo. I want that bright color. So let's take a look and identify what's different about the rabbit, because that will tell us how to adjust our photo. The first thing that we identified early on is that the rabbit is a little bit more desaturated and cooler in tone. So that's two different adjustment masks we'll need. One for dealing with saturation, curves, something like that, contrast, and then one for dealing with the coolness of the rabbit. Let's take a look at the color and the tone first. Let's handle that first. We're going to go adjustment masks and then color balance. We're going to right click on that, create clipping mask. And now we're going to see in properties, we're going to just adjust this color balance until it feels better. So the first thing we identified is this is really cool toned. It's got too much blue in it. So to compensate for that, we can adjust it over to yellow. And you can see that subtle adjustment is starting to make some difference. The rest of these you can kind of do, you know, just to see what looks most natural. Keep an eye on the whites. That's what's going to affect how this looks with the rest of the photo, is your lights and darks. That's what you always want to be looking at when adjusting colors. That's not bad. Let's leave it there and handle our contrast next. I'm going to try using curves to do this. Create clipping mask, and let's get this in a little bit darker. Whenever you adjust contrast, it will automatically adjust saturation too. Notice how the bunny gets more saturated as we increase the dark tones. They're very closely interrelated, so that's why we're doing curves first. And this is going to be, like I said, pretty challenging to get, but we can get a lot closer. This photo has a lot of contrast in it, lots of light and dark tones. I'm not a professional photo editor, so this is going to be a challenge for me. I'm not going to lie, but I'm going to look close as I can at these tones and how this is playing out in relation to the rest of the bedroom here, and see if I can get it to feel harmonious. It's a real challenge doing this sort of thing. That's feeling better. Let's see it without. Yeah. Let's go back to color balance, and we might just adjust a little bit, play with these values. Oh yeah, so I think we had a little bit too much magenta in there. And the reality of this is that you're probably going to have to go back a couple times with fresh eyes and see if it looks right. This is actually probably a little too contrasty. So it's just delicate work getting this right. But that's not bad. That's looking okay. So what else could we do? What are some other tricks we could have? Well, we could try bringing in the color of this. Let's give this a layer 0. I'm just going to try some techniques to like see what I can do to, what if I did hue? And just like create clipping mask. Maybe that'll match the tones a little bit closer. Or color, maybe. Oh, color helps, I think. A lot of it's experimentation, so that's a little too much. It's not very natural looking. But bringing in a little bit of the color from the photo and using the photo as a color blending mode is actually helping out here. It's tough too because there's definitely a difference in how sharp the bunny is versus how sharp the bed is. The bed looks a lot sharper and more detailed than I think the bunny does. The bunny looks a little soft. So we could try on our bunny layer. Let's make this a smart object so that we can undo this if we want. Let's try a filter, sharpen. Let's do smart sharpen. And do about 100%. Now there are some spots here that just look odd in terms of the lighting. This is where we might want to try and get into adjusting our lighting a little bit. I'm going to add a layer, and I'm going to pick a color from the photo, and oops, let's use a nice soft brush. Light is always super soft. Okay. And just kind of go along in here, maybe a little bit up here, and we're going to change the lighting on the bun just a bit. Change the blending mode to, I don't know, screen, something with light in it. And then turn the opacity down. Let's see if that helps. Zooming out, no light, maybe. Like I said, I'm not particularly good at this. This is definitely going to be a challenge for me. Let's try and do some dark. Let's shade the bun a bit. So we need multiply, darken, near burn. I don't know, I might want like a more cool tone gray for this. So here's the thing with shadows. Light tends to have warmth and shadows tend to have cooler colors. So that's why it looks a little unnatural for the shadows to be in that yellow. It just feels kind of funky. Oh, see, look how much more natural that's feeling. Much better. That's because shadows tend to have cool tones. This is something that you learn in painting class. So let's say that let's use gray here. Let's say that we wanted a nice shadow from the bunny on the bed. Make it nice and big. Bunnies have shadows, right? If you don't put the shadow in, it looks like it's floating or it's cut out. And see if we can get it to work. Multiply, overlay. What are our options here? And try multiply first. and then squish it down. You don't need a circular shadow, you need a bunny shaped shadow. It's a little better. Make it a little softer. Now it still looks odd. It's just really hard to get around this. So when you get to this point when this just looks really harsh, it looks a little odd, it's time to put a layer mask on. Get your brush out, make sure it's really soft, and start clicking nearby. Not on the bunny, nearby. Why you want to do this? Because what it's doing is it's just making it a little bit opaque. And you can see when you go and zoom in real close, you're going to have a problem because it'll be fuzzy, right? You got to be really careful that you don't mask out the wrong thing here. But it can start, if you do this sort of thing, it can go a long way in getting rid of the harshness of the masking, while still keeping the detail that we had from the other layer mask. So that's, again, that's why you want to think about and use layer masks. They can stack like this. They can just really help. They're not always going to be able to be perfect. Let's just give this a little bit more softness back here. Mask back in. It's a game of like masking in and out basically to get this to look right. And you might not think it's making a difference, but it is actually. It's just really softening it over here, but not too much is the idea. And it still looks weird. This is just really challenging stuff, you know? Your ability to get this to look good is going to be totally dependent on how much time you have to spend here. And also things like where you place the bun. This actually weirdly looks a little bit more natural than where I had it over here. So you can try playing with the placement. You can hide the parts that you're having a hard time with, or you could do a different effect that's not trying to squish things together that don't make sense. So you might find yourself limited by your skills here, in which case maybe that's not the right concept to go with, you know? Not that I'm saying give up on a concept, but if you can't execute a concept well, what's the point, right? So sometimes knowing your skill set and pushing yourself to think of a different concept that isn't the first one you think of, and that maybe you can execute on a little bit better, that can bring you to some really interesting places, like some of the videos that I showed earlier. So here, I think this is about as good as I'm going to be able to get with this. Without more time, I'm going to have a really tough time getting this bunny to look like it belongs in this picture. I could probably get away with it for the purpose of advertising. I could probably have some nice big type here, and your eyes would be really focused on that. And then you might not notice as much. But that's a lot to bank on. That's a lot to hope for, that you won't notice that this doesn't look good. So if it were me, I'd go with a different technique. Sometimes you're going to run into a point where what you want to do just isn't within your skill set, or it isn't within what you're able to do in the time you have. And it's good to recognize when that happens and back up and say, okay, is there another way I can solve this problem? So if I had a different way that I could solve this problem, I would maybe think of a different concept. I would think of different ways to integrate the bedroom and the bunny with like less realistic colors, so that, or really exaggerate the size of the bunny, something to tell your brain that this isn't supposed to look realistic, so that then you can have it not look realistic and it's not a big deal. Art is all about intention, and design is all about intention. So as long as you're intentional with your work and you execute on it, you don't always have to stick with realism. You can do something really artistic. You can push those creative boundaries. You just have to be intentional about it. So if you do decide to take on photo manipulation, if you do decide to do compositing, these basic skills will get you going in that direction. However, if you can't get it, that's okay too. It takes a long time to get. Figure out where you land in your skill set right now and execute well, no matter what path you choose. With that, I'm so excited to see what you come up with for these advertisements. I'll see you later.